Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing an in the bag. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I've had a lot of requests to let people know what disc I'm throwing. And I was actually really surprised by this because usually people tend to only really care what top level pros are throwing. Or maybe they're like local pros or something along those lines. Or maybe you're curious what your friends throw or something like that. But usually you don't care too much about what like an amateur like myself is throwing. But the people have spoken, and so here's an in the bag video, and we'll start with the bag itself. This is a Combat Ranger from Dynamic Disc, and the reason why I like this bag a lot is because 1, it's really durable, 2, it has a ton of storage space, and 3, it is really comfortable to carry around. Particularly if you can see here, this back paneling is just so nice. It makes it so easy to carry around. You know, no back pain, you know, no issues being fatigued while carrying it on my back, walking around the course. It's just super nice to carry, and that's why I've chosen this bag. Obviously, if you're a newer player, I would probably recommend a less expensive bag, one that's a little bit more simple, especially if you're just getting started. But for someone like me who plays a lot, this has really been a fantastic investment for me, and I really enjoy it. Speaking of fantastic investments, I also have what is called the M Retriever. This thing is fantastic for getting your disc out of the water or up in trees or something along those lines, and it can extend up to 20 feet. So this has been a lifesaver as far as getting disc back for myself or people I come across on the course all the time. So if you can get a disc retriever as part of your bag, I would recommend it. It'll save you money by not having to buy a replacement disc all the time. And all in all, I just think it's a great tool. There's other ones out there that you can get. I think one's called like the Quick Stick, but it's spelled with like a K-W-I-K or something like that. There's a few other options out there. But yeah, I would definitely recommend having some type of disc retriever. Definitely will get your money's worth out of it. Another thing I always carry in my bag is a water bottle, though I don't have one in here right now, but always on the course I'll have some type of water bottle in here. Got to stay hydrated when you're on the course, so I always recommend having a water bottle with you. This one has a nice little water bottle holder on it. Also, they have this little pocket up here where you can put your cell phone or other things like that, and I put like a little pin on there for me. I don't know if you can see it. It's Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender actually throwing a disc into a basket, so I thought that was kind of cool. So just to kind of personalize a little bit, I have a couple other little patches on here, and then other than that, I also always carry a towel. This is like to wipe off disc or wipe off your hands or different things like that. Keep your disc dry, keep your hands dry, whatever the case may be. I also have a flight towel. And these are really cool because it basically has like a little piece of a disc attached to a towel, and it allows you to kind of warm up without actually having to throw a disc. So you can actually kind of grab it just like you would a disc, and the towel provides some resistance so you're not injuring your arm by doing full motion swings. And so it's really nice to have a towel that also is a tool that I can use to warm up. So I have one of those as well, so I can recommend Flight Towel. Again, I'm not sponsored by anyone, obviously. I'm an amateur player. I've only been playing for about a year. I've only just started this YouTube channel, so I don't really have a huge social media presence yet in the disc golf community. So obviously I have no sponsors or partnerships or anything along those lines. So a lot of what I use is kind of mixed and matched from different companies, including the actual disc that I throw. And now one last thing before I get into disc themselves, I do obviously always have a mini on me. This is from Foundation Disc. I just like their branding, like their logo, like their content. So I have a Foundation Disc mini. Then inside this pocket, I usually carry gum. I like to chew gum whenever I'm on the course. This kind of helps me focus, what have you, just kind of a personal thing for me. And then I also have a rangefinder in here. This is the Bushnell 850 Sport, so it actually measures in feet, whereas most rangefinders measure in yards. And this is great for if I'm not quite confident in what the tee sign is telling me distance-wise off the tee, and also for longer approach shots, just to know exactly how far the basket is away from where I'm at, or where my landing zone is away from where I'm at. That way I can more accurately decide what disc I want to throw and how I want to throw it to make sure that I'm able to, get the right distance to put myself, up close to the basket for a putt. Then up top here, I have kind of various things I keep in here, but kind of the majority of it's like permanent markers, pencils. But one of the other things that I carry up here is actually like grip enhancement tools. So if my hands get sweaty, or if it's really humid outside, or if it's raining or something like that, to have something to kind of just get the moisture off your hands when you're throwing. I do have a birdie bag, but I also have what's called a whale sack, and this is actually made by Tina Oakley. I think she owns the company and manufactures these, but they have like kind of this clay, like silica bead type thing on the inside, and it really dries your hands off nicely. So huge shout out to Tina Oakley, and huge shout out to Whale Sacks for having these. These have been fantastic for me on grip. And I also, you've seen the videos, I have a bit of an elbow brace. I've had issues in the past with tennis elbow, and so this kind of helps me a little bit. You know, it provides compression to that area, and it kind of helps prevent me from furthering injury or anything along those lines. So always have that with me as well. All right, let's finally get into disc, right? We've been talking all about the bag and stuff in the bag besides the disc, but now we'll get into actually discs themselves. And we'll start with what I putt with, putting putters. So I putt with the Fierce from Discraft, which is Paige Pierce's custom-made putter that she made whenever she first joined Discraft over from Dynamic Disc. I used to putt Deputies, which is the putter that she used when she was at Dynamic Disc as well. And I've also tried other putters like Wardens and Lunas and some other putters out there that I've also enjoyed. Because for me, I find that most putting putters, when I'm putting, fly roughly the same within the first 20 to 25 feet. I don't really notice any difference. Now, but they all feel about the same up until you start getting outside 30 feet. And I like this disc because it holds straighter for longer, so I don't have to compensate for how much I need to aim to the right because it's going to dump to the left when I putt. Or some people, when they get certain distances, they like to jump putt or step putt, which I do sometimes, but I like to avoid that as much as possible and just do my normal putting motion as far out as I possibly can. And for me, the Fierce just has a ton of glide. It's a little bit understable, and so it just holds straighter for longer, so I don't really have to change my putting motion up much. Even when I get to like 40, 45, even up to 50 feet, I can still kind of keep my putting motion pretty much the same without. Now, as far as just throwing putters and approach discs, and some people label disc putters, some people label discs as approach discs, some people say that certain discs that I consider approach discs are actually truly mid-range discs, but I'm not trying to get into all that controversy or terminology battles. It's all semantics to me, really. But anyway, throwing putters wise, I also have a Fierce. This is the ESP signature Fierce that Paige put out kind of towards the end of 2020, whenever she got her 991 rating, which is, I think, is the highest rating a woman's ever had in disc golf, and she has always really been pushing close to 1,000. But anyway, I like this because it's a little bit understable, but because it's in this ESP plastic, it tends to be able to handle torque really well, and it tends to fly really, really straight, and it doesn't really have a lot of finish at the end of its flight. It tends to just kind of keep going straight, maybe just barely dump to the left, and then land softly. So this is great for dead straight shots, and also if I need to do something that's a little bit of a turnover towards the right on a backhand, this disc can accomplish that for me as well, and still not completely just keep dumping right the entire flight. It'll tend to settle out and then kind of start pushing straight. So really, really like this disc. Now, for another backhand approach disc, I have the Lucid X Warden, and I like this disc because it's more stable than the Fierce, so it tends to be less prone to turning over to the right on a backhand, and it also has a little bit more finish to the left at the end of its flight. So if I need something that's a bit more overstable to fly pretty much dead straight, but then have that little bit more of left finish, then this is a perfect disc for that. And then finally, my workhorse forehand approach shot disc is going to be the Zone. Another disc that I like to use, but I don't have in my bag right now, but I have used in the past, is actually the A3. And I like the A3 sometimes over the Zone because it's a little bit more shallow, so it just feels a little bit more comfortable to grab. But yeah, the Zone is just perfect for forehand approach shots for me. I really use this disc quite a lot within like 200 feet of where I want to be, maybe even a little bit more than that. Also use it for some backhand shots, but not too often. Just a fantastic forehand disc for me. There's plenty of other ones out there that you might like better, but this is what I like to use. It's in the Crystal FLX plastic, or Crystal Flex, I think. So enjoy that a lot. Now, another disc I'll use for approaches that's a little bit more short range as well is actually going to be this Harp. I don't really like it for forehands. It's a little bit too deep for forehands. It's not as comfortable to me as holding the Zone or like the A3 or something. But if I want like an overstable, like shorter range disc, I think this kind of is right on the border of being a putter or a mid-range. I think it might be more of a mid-range, but really enjoyed this for like backhand flex shots or just overstable, short range shots. Sorry, this autofocus has been messing up probably this whole video. I really do apologize for that. This is just a fantastic disc. Really, really love the Harp. And as you can see already, and as I've already kind of said, I throw a mixed bag, obviously, since I'm not partnered with anyone or anything like that. But I would say most of my discs are either Trilogy, which is Dynamic Disc, Westside Disc, and Latitude 64, or Discraft, or I do have some Prodigy disc in here as well. Now, for mid-ranges, I don't really carry many mid-ranges. I don't throw mid-ranges that often. I'd rather just throw putters if I'm going to throw kind of that distance. But like I said, the Harp kind of borders on being a mid-range disc, so you might consider it a mid-range. But I do have this Gold Line Claymore, which I really like because it's kind of more of an understable mid-range. So for me, it flies really, really straight, or I can do it for turnovers to the right if need be, or hyzer flips or things of that nature. So definitely a mid-range disc that I do quite enjoy throwing a lot. And then I actually lost my other main mid-range disc, which is a Crystal Z Buzz. I lost it in the water at the University of South Alabama course, which will be in a future video. So I'm hoping I'm going to get that back at some point because I really, really like that disc. But to replace it for now, I have an EMAC Truth in lucid plastic. EMAC Truth to me flies very, very similar to a Buzz, feels very similar as a Buzz in the hand. So this is kind of my more neutral mid-range, definitely has some left finish to it on a backhand. So that's kind of the other mid-range I might carry. And then for the most overstable mid-range I have, and one of my other workhorse forehand discs besides the Zone is going to be the Justice. You've seen me throw this already in several videos, and I really, really love this for forehands that just go a bit further than the Zone and have maybe a little bit more of an overstable finish. So this Justice is a workhorse. You won't really see me backhand it too often unless it's like a strong headwind or I really need like a nice, really strong left-hand finish on a backhand for like a shorter range. But I would usually just use the Heart for that. But yeah, the Justice definitely gets a lot of work in as a forehand disc for me. Now we can get into some fairway drivers, and we'll start with my 7 speeds. So my most understable fairway, and one that you won't really see me throw too much, is kind of more of a utility disc or more for something that I really want to have like a strong to the right finish on a backhand, or maybe like a hyzer flip type shot, would be the Sting from Discraft. There's a few other discs that I kind of use that kind of also are similar to this, but this is the one I have in the bag right now. And so yeah, this is just like a really understable 7-speed fairway disc. Then for something a bit more stable, I have the F2. This is a really stable fairway driver, definitely has a good strong left finish on it, definitely isn't going to roll over on me or anything along those lines. So this has been a disc I really, really enjoy, the F2 here from Prodigy. And then something very similar to the F2 to me, but has a bit more glide, I get a bit more distance on, is going to be the Explorer. A really nice long flying fairway driver for me that has that, you know, dependable left finish, but isn't too overstable, definitely can fly straight for a good ways. I can also use this for some kind of utility forehand shots, so I can kind of put this on a hyzer flip forehand. It'll ride left a little bit, but it'll still have that finish to the right that I want, and so I could do some cool shot shaping with this disc that I can't necessarily do with other discs when it comes to forehands. But next up, we have some of my 9-speed fairway drivers, and first off, we'll start with this Goldline Saint. You see me throw an orange one in some previous videos, but this is the one I finally got back. It's a blue one I lost in the water a little ways ago, and it finally got its way back to me. This is definitely more of an understable disc, definitely more for right finishes or hyzer flips. Definitely can make it go dead straight if I release it correctly, but definitely can tend to be a bit flaky on me as far as being a bit too understable. I personally have a problem as a thrower right now, kind of just rolling my hand over towards the end of my flight and putting it on anhyzer when I shouldn't. So that's partly on me. But this is definitely a little bit more of a stable to understable fairway driver. Really, really like the Saint. And then I have the same disc in the Optoplastic because this is Goldline, and this is a little bit more stable. Definitely a little bit more neutral. Really, really dead straight flyer. Really, really enjoy this disc. Definitely will see me throw this a good bit in some videos. And then for more overstable stuff, I have the Felon, the Lucid Glimmer Felon. This is Eric Oakley's stamp. I actually just got this disc, so I haven't really thrown it that much, but I really like it for forehands mostly, or if I need like a really overstable backhand. But I also have the Raptor, the Polyubari Tour Series Raptor, which you've seen me throw in previous videos, which is also a really overstable 9-speed fairway driver that I use for forehands and really overstable backhands. And to me, these are two very, very similar discs, so there's a bit of, I guess, overlap between these two discs in my bag, but I really just want to support Eric Oakley because he's semi-local to me and he's a cool dude, and I really think his logo and stamp looks really cool, so I'd kind of put it in the bag, and I'm kind of messing with it, but one of these two might wind up coming out the bag soon because, again, they are really, really similar, but for right now I have them both in the bag. Then, as kind of a hybrid driver that's kind of between a fairway and a distance driver, I have the Sargent from Dynamic Disc, which has like this really cool like dragon worm kind of stamp on it that I got from Infinite Disc. I really, really like this disc for throws that are overstable, but not nearly as overstable as what the Raptor or Felon would be. It's definitely going to still have that dependable finish, whether it be a forehand or a backhand, but I get more distance out of it. I can, you know, get a little bit more out of it, I guess is kind of the point. All right, now we get into the big guns, the distance drivers, and starting off with my most understable discs, we have two Hades. This one is the most understable. It's lighter. It's a little bit more worn. So this one is like really, really understable. I use this for maybe backhand rollers or big, you know, anti shots, like really big turnover shots. So I don't use this too often just because it's really understable, but maybe in like a tailwind, or like I said, if I'm trying to do a big right hand backhand turnover shot, then this would definitely be the disc for that. And then I have this Hades, which is a little bit heavier, a little bit more stable. This was like, I think, a first run, so it was a little bit more understable, and I feel like these new like stock stamp ones are a little bit more stable. So I use this for hyzer flips, or I can throw it flat. It's going to ride right to the bit, but it's still going to be able to come back to that straight finish. It's not going to have like a hard left finish unless I nose it up or I put like a lot of hyzer on it. But this is probably the disc I can throw the furthest in my bag on a backhand, or one of the discs I get the most distance out of. For something a touch more stable than the Hades, but still fairly understable, I have two swords, and I have the cool airbender stamps on them. The white one's definitely a little bit older and a bit more beat in, so a bit more understable. This one's a bit newer, and so it's a little bit more neutral. So these are kind of, this is like my most neutral flyer, I think. It rides really, really, really straight. Doesn't roll over or anything like that. Just maybe a bit of right, but it's always going to come back straight or a little bit to the left. I don't have to worry about rolling this thing over or having it just get way out of hand to the right on me. This one is a little bit more finicky. Definitely have to be sure to be a bit more careful. I definitely can't throw this anywhere near a headwind or anything like that. It's going to just roll over and never come back. But I really, really like this disc. I can't take it out of my bag. I had such a cool stamp on it, even though it's getting a bit too beat up. But it flies almost more similar to like my most understable Hades at this point. But still a disc that I just love. And so the swords are definitely kind of my neutral to slightly understable distance flyers. And a disc that's also very similar would be this particular big Z Thrasher. Now, a lot of Thrashers are really understable, but for whatever reason, this one has like a good bit of dome to it, so it actually flies more neutral. Definitely not overstable by any means, but it definitely is like more of a neutral flyer. It kind of reminds me of the Blue Sword. So this is a disc I enjoy throwing a lot just to get those dead straight shots. You know, definitely still get some left finish, but not too drastic of one. So this is definitely a disc I really, really enjoy throwing a lot. And it has like this really cool ghost stamp on it. So that's why I like having it in the bag. I just think it looks cool more than anything else. All right, so next up on the distance drivers is my other really neutral disc besides the big Z Thrasher are the Blue Sword, which is going to be the hybrid trespass with the really cool Tina Oakley whale stamp on it. Love this disc. This disc I can really throw nice and straight. It does have some left finish to it, which is what I would want in a disc like this, but I can throw it straight. I can throw it really, really far. I absolutely love the Trespass. It's one of my favorite discs in my bag besides the big Z Thrasher or the Sword. So absolutely love this disc. Really, really great disc. I recommend the Trespass as like people's kind of first distance driver, because I think the Trespass is like a really nice neutral flying driver to start out with. And then for a more overstable disc, I actually have a Moonshine, like kind of sparkle Trespass, which has like a really, really cool stamp on it. Hopefully the focus will eventually find it. That is just a beautiful stamp there from Infinite Disc. And I think his name is like Skullboy or something like that, who actually designed the stamp. This is definitely more overstable than this one. Still not like crazy overstable or anything like that, but definitely because it's that glow plastic, it tends to be a bit more stable, so I get more of a left finish on it. Can trust it for like skips and stuff like that on the ground, but I can still get really good distance. It's not so overstable that my arm speed can't get distance on it. I can definitely still get this like over 300 feet pretty regularly, up to like maybe even 350 feet, but get that stronger left finish than what this one's going to provide. So I'll kind of choose between these two depending on how much of a left finish I want at the end of the flight on the backhand. And now we get to the more overstable. These are my most overstable discs and ones that I typically use for flex forehands for that reason. Or if I need to fight a headwind, or if I want like a really good strong left finish on the disc, or if I want to throw a flex shot where I'm going to put on anhyzer and it's going to go straight and to the right a bit and then make sure it comes back out and back to the left. So the first one's going to be the X3 from Prodigy. I love this disc for forehands because it's so shallow, so it just feels really comfortable in my hand for a distance forehand. I can throw it flat. It's going to go to the left just a little bit. Then it's going to go straight, and then it's going to come to the right and finish to the right just as I need. I can also put it on hyzer on a forehand and have it flip up the flat, ride, and then finish to the right. This is a fantastic disc. I love the X3. It's one of my favorite distance drivers besides the Trespass of the Sword. It's definitely my favorite forehand distance driver to really get distance but still get the right finish I need. And so really, really like the X3. And then for my most overstable disc right now, which for most people that are really high level, this still wouldn't even really be considered overstable. But for me, I think it's overstable because the plastic it's in is going to be like this Lucid Glimmer Raider with a really, really cool stamp on it. This disc for me is my headwind fighter on a backhand. It's also a disc I can throw like a flex forehand on to, you know, get some distance, get it to ride to the left, but then make sure it's really going to come back and hit to the right so I don't roll it over or something. That's pretty much it for the bag. Again, if you're new and you're watching this video, this all can be kind of overwhelming. And the reality is, if you're new, you do not need this mini disc. I probably don't even need this mini disc. Most people don't need this mini disc, except for maybe like really top professionals who know exactly how each disc flies and needs them for very particular shot shaping. I would say, like I said, just get like a small bag and maybe get some putters, maybe a couple of mid-ranges, and maybe some fairway drivers at the most, and just really practice with those. And you can even get cheaper plastic that's only going to cost you like $8 or $9 per disc, and most discs aren't going to cost more than like $15 if you want discs that are a bit more durable or going to last a bit longer for you without chipping or anything like that. But yeah, I would definitely not recommend getting a lot of distance drivers, because that's what people see. They go to the store, they see, oh, distance driver, ooh, it's really high speed, ooh, that must mean it goes really far, without realizing that you don't have the arm speed or the form to be able to throw it properly. And so it's probably going to fly like 100, 200 feet, and then it's just going to nosedive into the ground. And you're going to be like, what the heck? This is a distance driver. I should be able to throw this really far. No, that's not really how it works. Like, you'll see that most professional players can throw a putter really, really far, even though it's a putter and it's supposed to be considered a short range disc. Same with people who can sometimes throw like 7 or 9 speed fairway drivers just as far as they can throw a 12 speed distance driver. It really all comes down to technique, form, arm speed, experience, and consistency in how you release the disc, what angle you're putting it on, if you're judging it right based on the wind that you're playing in. So many factors come into it. The weight of the disc. I mean, I could go on and on. So again, for beginners, I would say stick more towards the putters, mid-ranges, fairway drivers. Try to stick more towards discs that are going to be more neutral or maybe even more understable, especially if you know that you have a slower arm speed. And then you're going to kind of learn as you go, right? And you might even be able to find used discs. Like if you go join your local like disc golf Facebook group, or you go check some of the local stores that sell discs, so a lot of them will sell used discs that you can maybe even pick up for like $5 or something like that, but will still be in pretty good condition and still be fine to throw. So that's just kind of some things I want to throw here in at the end as you're maybe considering buying your own disc. If you're looking to buy a disc online, if you live in North America, I would recommend companies like Infinite Disc, Disc Golf Center, OTB Disc. You know, those are some of the ones that really sell for a nice price. Usually you're going to be able to find coupon codes to get free shipping, or maybe even get some type of percentage off, or there's some type of rewards program where you're going to be able to get discounts in the future if you shop there consistently. So those are some of the ones that I recommend personally. I know Nailed It Disc Golf also has some pretty good stuff, and Foundation Disc also has some pretty good stuff as well. So I'd throw those out there also. But you might even have like a more local mom and pop sports shop that's going to sell disc, or might even more likely have used disc to get you even cheaper stuff or cooler stuff. Anyway, that's what I have in my bag right now. If I add anything to the bag or change something, maybe I'll make a separate video about that, but this is what I've been throwing for a while and what I enjoy. I am interested in some of these new Latitude discs coming out, the Royal line. I think one's called the Rive and one's called the Grace. And then they have one other disc that's a mid-range that look pretty cool. So I think it might be the Trust or something like that. So those are some discs I might look into in the future. And then obviously one day, if I ever do wind up becoming sponsored by someone or something like that, then maybe my disc will change. But I imagine that's probably in the distant future. And even if it did happen, it would be as an amateur player, I imagine, and more for my social media presence and content than me actually being a really high-level player. But yeah, that's going to do it. Catch you in the next video.